Good morning, everyone. Good morning. How are you all doing? You all ready, raring to go? Yeah? Feeling good? Good. Okay, first of all, who likes a bit of rain? There's some rain people out there, okay? I mean, we get a lot of it in this country, so we should probably make our peace with it, right? It's been quite a dry season, though, at the moment, hasn't it? Now, who likes being out in the rain with no real protection from it? No. Now, I remember a long time ago now, these stories get longer and longer ago, okay? Like when I did do a bit of work in the police, they'd sometimes have to do a night shift on the street where you're just basically looking after the people that are out and about as they're going on the town, on a Friday or Saturday night. And you'd basically have to stand outside, whatever the weather. And what I really didn't like is when it was just absolutely pouring it down with rain. Now, you have to wear a lot of kit and equipment, as you know. Some of you have heard my story when I handcuffed myself to a seatbelt before. I'm not telling that today. But you have to wear a lot of kit. And when you get soaked, it makes it really heavy and really uncomfortable. And trying to do anything when you are drenched just seems to be much more difficult. Does that make sense? The last thing you'd want to do is have to chase someone or something like that. So it's this idea, okay, this will make more sense later, okay? When you're drenched, it makes things difficult. And it can deter us. The natural thing we'd want to do is just go dry off, isn't it? And stop doing whatever it is we're doing. Now, I wanted to look at, it's really famous. Most of us, we all know this story. We've heard it recently as well. I wanted to look at the story of Jesus on the water. So from Matthew 14, 22 to 33, I'll just read this out first. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves, and the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." Okay, put yourself in that position, okay? How do you respond to that? Your master, your teacher, someone that you are really close to, you are now seeing them do something. They're on the waves, okay? You were first terrified, and he's calmed you down a little bit. What's your next response? Thinking logically, you're a disciple. What do you now do? Do you just think, that was a good trick? That's good, Jesus. What's next? What's the lesson? What would you do right here? What does Peter do? This is hard to get your head around, really. He says, "Lord, if it is you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." I mean, what kind of response is that? Whose first response would be that? Anyone? Does anyone want a show of hands? It probably wouldn't. If I'm seeing Jesus do something amazing, I probably wouldn't say, "Oh, Jesus, I tell you what, tell me, this will be great, tell me to come to you on those waves." It's an interesting story because we know what happens as it goes on. But first of all, we have to sort of commend that attitude, don't we? Because there's a curiosity, there's a, God, whatever's happening right now, will you just bring me into a position of insecurity with you? I mean, we don't ask for that, do we? I don't think I've put myself in that humble position the same way Peter did. To actually have that mindset, to say, God, no matter what situation it is, whether it's secure or completely insecure, as long as I am with you, just put me there. Who would do that? Come on, because we've been through this story a few times before. Who? Let's be really brave. Let's be honest. Who values your comforts? Your security. Look, no one's put their hand up. It's like, God's watching, guys, okay? No, I'm kidding. A lot of us, we do value it, don't we? And to be fair, there's perhaps nothing wrong with that. And I can see, I'm getting at the ripe old age of 34 now, and I can value comforts. I will value some security. I will value some level of routine. It's natural. When we look at this in psychology, it's actually embedded in. And they say, not my words, they say apparently the older you get, the more likely we are to value those things. So we've got Peter then saying, call me out onto the waves. Whereas I'd probably be thinking, that's a great trick. Are we going back to shore, though, because it's getting quite choppy? Safety first, guys, okay? But he had this heart of, if it's you, call me. So he does just that, doesn't he? Come, he said. If God tells you to come here, that's quite a response. Because now there's an obligation. Okay, it's one thing to say, God, just use me, just come to me, just use me, just call me out. And now he's saying, okay, come to me. So he's put in that position. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water towards Jesus. So again, I want you to just visualize yourself here. You are in that boat. You're now stepping out. It doesn't fit naturally to us, does it? Because everything in our brain, the natural mind would be saying, this is not possible. Like, we know what happens when you try to stand on the water. You sink. So you'd have the natural mind. Everything in your mind would be saying, this is not going to work. What are you doing? Like, okay, yeah, you've just seen Jesus do it, but he's probably thinking as well, like, I'm not Jesus, though. Like, I've seen him do amazing things. Like, if anyone can do it, it probably was him, but I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I have the power, the authority. I don't know if I'm spiritual enough to do this. But Jesus has told him to come. So he steps out. I don't know what that would have felt like, to put that foot down on the wave and begin to have enough leverage to then lift yourself up. And he got it to a position where he could walk. But then what happens? It's the strangest thing. You've just done this. If anything would boost your confidence in God, it should be that right there, shouldn't it? You're thinking, I am literally stood on the impossible right now because God's called me. I am stood on something that should not be possible, and it's happening. And he starts to make those steps, doesn't he? He's like, I'll go towards Jesus. And it says, what does it say? The wind and the waves, they came up. And he was afraid and started beginning to sink. I guess it makes sense, doesn't it? But he's out there, he's walking, maybe getting closer and closer, and he starts to feel the wind hit him and the waves come. And he must have, he was taking his eyes off of Jesus. As you probably would. You're thinking, I don't know about this. So you're looking around, you're thinking, it's getting a bit wavy out here. Are we sure this is safe? Now, a minute ago, I was right next to the boat. I could have just clung onto the boat if I needed it. But now I'm out of my comfort zone by a long way. If I start sinking now, Lord, I can't just get back to the boat. I'm going to be going down. And that wind, I'm feeling it. I remember, obviously we've never experienced being able to walk on water ourselves. Is anyone afraid of heights? I know I've asked that before. Anyone afraid of heights? Yeah? Yeah, me too. There was one time we went on holiday. This is the short version of it. Went on holiday to Bournemouth, and I don't know if you've been there before. They have this big zip line that goes out from the pier all the way down to the beach, and I am afraid of heights. But I thought it would be a good time. Well, me and my dad, we gave it a go. So we went up. Now, when I say I'm afraid of heights, I really was, and it was literally this scale of fear coming upon me. The first sets of stairs, I was fine. I was thinking, I don't know what the big deal is. I'm doing okay. This is great. I'm fine. You went up another flight of stairs, the spiral stairs going up this metal structure up to basically this tower where you get connected to a wire that takes you down. About halfway up the tower, I started to feel that wind. Okay? The structure, it moves slightly. Okay? Might not look like much. You look at it, it doesn't look like anything's happening. When you're up there, I'm like, oh heck. This is moving. All of a sudden, my hand is gripping that railing. I'm thinking, no, I don't know if I could keep going up here. But I just, one step at a time, up to the top. And you could feel a bit of a sway. I'm literally stood there thinking, I don't know if I can do this. I'm thinking, I might have to go back down. And what gets me through it, okay, this is not, I'd love to say, no, I just found the inner strength. And God emboldened me, and I do it. I saw this kid, okay? This kid was in front of me. And he'd got hooked on to this wire. And off the edge, I kid you not, I don't know if he'd done it before. He must have, probably many times. And he just had a running jump. And he went, whee, and slid straight down. I'm there gripping on the corner like this. I'm witnessing that, watching it. I'm thinking, well, if he can blooming do that, there's no way I'm going back down now. I've just seen this kid do that. So I guess it was, stubbornness that got me through? I don't know. And so it clipped me on. I was still afraid, okay? The stubbornness was there. I was like, I'm going, but I'm afraid. Clipped me on. And it must have been the most graceless jump off they've ever witnessed, because I'm just stood on the edge. And you know when you have that, your mind is saying, I'm going to go. And your body says, no, you're not. And my mind's saying, no, I'm going to go now. And again, the body, no, he stayed put. And I'm just literally like leaning on the edge. And my dad's there, and he manages to do it fine as well. But eventually, I literally just have to lean into it till I'm at that point of no return, and I can get I literally can't pull myself back. So I just lean into it. And then what they don't tell you, there's some slack on the rope, isn't there? So for a split second, you drop. But at that point, it's too late. So I'm sliding down. Thankfully, about halfway down, you get into it. Or the relief sets in, you think, well, it's nearly done now. So I managed to do it. But since then, when I read this story, I read it a little bit differently. Because it's so easy to think, I was a bit fearful of the waves. And we've never done that. But I would imagine maybe it felt a little bit like that. Taking a step off of something into nothing does not feel natural, particularly for someone who is afraid of heights. So it took a lot to do that. So now imagine he's halfway across, and he must be feeling that thing. He's feeling the sway. He's feeling the wind. He knows he's not got a railing to grab onto now, because that railing, that was keeping me safe, you see. I was like wrapped my arm around it, and you do all sorts of things. That was keeping me safe. That was my comfort. But he's not got that now. So the wind, the waves come, and he takes his eyes off of Jesus. And what we see is in Scripture, it's an amazing story and also illustration for a point, but every time he looked away, he got distracted. He gave fear just a bit too much attention, he sinks. But when he puts his eyes back on, goes up. Eyes off, he sinks. So we know eventually, he must have got wet to a certain extent, because he was sinking. I don't know how deep or how much he went in, but he was sinking. Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him, and then says, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." So he does this amazing thing, but he still needs God to lift him out of it. Still needs Jesus to lift him out of it, because the fear, I guess it just got the better of him. Now, most of us, we could probably say that's quite natural, isn't it? And the story, what we often focus on the fact that, hey, you know what? If you just keep your eyes on Jesus, you'll stay above those waves. That's I think there's a biblical principle there. I've preached on that myself, but that's not the main focus, really, what I wanted to look at. What I wanted to look at is, in some sense, we could say here that Peter actually failed, in a way. Does that make sense? Because let's say if the lesson was to be completed perfectly, probably what Jesus was the idea. I mean, he knew what was going to happen, but the ideal would have been you just walk flawlessly over those waves. The wind doesn't scare you. The waves don't scare you. You keep your eyes firmly on Jesus the whole way and meet him right there on the water. But what we had is half of that sinking, Jesus coming to pick him up anyway and saying, you have little faith. Now, I don't read that as a dig, because I think he knew exactly what was going to happen. But did Peter know that? For a moment, did he know that? I wonder if there was any part of him that when he was climbing back into that boat where he was thinking, oh, I've messed that up a little bit. Like that was my moment. Like we've been following Jesus. It couldn't get more epic than that. I wanted to prove myself to him. Like I wanted to show my faith. And in a way, he failed. Does that make sense? But that is not meant to be a depressing thing. I think that's a really good thing. Because Jesus knew this. Jesus knew this. Now, Peter, he's soaked, he's climbing back into the boat. I wonder what the other disciples thought. I mean, they're probably, to be fair, they're probably all still very impressed. But I wonder if there was any sort of, you were half there, you did a bit of it, but you did fall in at the end there, Peter. Look at Jesus, he's not wet. Peter, sit over there. You're getting water all in the boat. Come on, you sit at the back. Do you know what I'm saying? I know I'm making sort of a joke out of it, bringing some humour to it, but there could have been that feeling of, I failed this. Now, why this is encouraging is because have we ever felt that at some point? Maybe not that exact situation. Have you ever felt that maybe you missed the mark somewhere? You could have done better. It wasn't the way you wanted it to go. Maybe it was something you did or something we didn't do or just something that happened by accident. But we've probably all felt that somewhere, haven't we? A little bit of disappointment that I just wish that would have gone better. And sometimes we can put that blame on ourselves, can't we, as well? Like, if I'd have just done more, maybe it would have, if I'd have just had more faith. Man, have you ever felt like that? If I'd have just had more faith, maybe things would have turned out different. And you know what? Maybe they would. But I think Jesus knows that sometimes, our faith, it can be weak. But his point is, what? In that weakness, he says, I'm aware of it. I know of it. But in that weakness, I can do something mighty. He says, I know we're not going to have perfect faith all the time. I know we're not always going to feel like we're more than conquerors. Does that make sense? He says, but in that weakness, he says, that is where there is so much room for God to do the heavy lifting. We don't know what that always looks like, but that is a biblical principle too, that through our weakness, we can see God's strength. We look at the very people he chose. You think, Jesus, why did you choose these people? What were you thinking? Okay, you put yourself in Jesus' shoes. That's a hard thing to do. You're trying to bring a new framework, a new ideology to not just your country, but eventually the whole globe. That is not an easy task to do. You ever considered that? I love to use this example, but learned this back in uni. How difficult it is to actually change someone's mind on something. Let's just have a debate. Let's just, we could probably do it right now. We could get some different political views. We won't. Or we could probably get some different political views on the table right now and say, convince each other. It is incredibly difficult to change someone's mind like that. And yet, Jesus, he knows he is bringing in a teaching, a system that is really going against the grain of the day. Okay, the people who are in charge, the powerful people, they are not going to like this. And he says, I'm going to bring in this new way of doing things, this new kingdom, and teach it to people, and it will spread not from this country, but also the whole globe. But I'm going to need some help. So I'm going to pick some people. I'm going to pick some
disciples. Who are you going for? Come on, Son of God, you could pick anyone you want. Who are we thinking? Would you be strategic? You think, okay, we're going to need some influential people. Okay, if we're doing it today, we'd be like, okay, we're going to need some people who control media, because they'll be able to get the message out there, okay? We're going to need to be strategic. We're going to need someone that's got a lot of finances, okay? This is not going to be cheap. We're trying to change the world, people, okay? We need a world-class team here. Who are you picking? Come on. Who does he go for? He just picks some like local people. Some available people. Some people who, you have to be careful how you say this. In their day, they would not have been deemed special or important. They would not have been the people, they would not have been getting many likes on social media, okay? They would not just be just another day out fishing today, guys. Look what I've caught, half a net full. They were not influential. They were not the money makers. They were not the business tycoons. They did not control the media. And in fact, there was also a tax collector. And they did not like tax collectors. Do you know what his name was? Matthew. He also had a tax collector. You'd be thinking, if someone came to you and they said, I'm going to change the world, guys. Look at these people I've got around me. I'm sorry, most of us would be thinking, no, you're not. Who have you picked? Like, that's not going to happen. He picked, can I just say, normal people. Didn't he? He picked people, or maybe we could frame it a different way. He picked people who were available, who said they would follow him, and they just happened to be those kinds of people. Does that make sense? Whatever the motive was, he picked just normal people. And we see that they did not have it all together. They were not perfect. They messed up at times. At times they probably felt a little bit disqualified, like, oh, I messed up, that could have gone better. But he never stopped using people. You know, Peter, he called him out onto the water. And though it can get very theological, and people may have different views, I do believe Jesus knew what was going to happen before it happened. I do think he had the big picture in mind. I think he knew he was going to the cross. I think he knew all of this was going to take place. I think he knew that Peter would deny him later on. And I think he knew there would also be a restoration when he came back, when he revealed himself post-crucifixion. Now, I know there can be a lot of interesting discourse back and forth theologically, but I think as part of the Godhead, maybe he had that special knowledge of what was to come. He knew the mission that was going to take place. Knowing that people would let him down, that by our standards they might be disqualified, he never ruled them out. Do we see that? He never ruled them out. Maybe he had to talk to them and they had to work through some things, but he never ruled them out. Like, how quick are we to hand out red cards? Metaphorically speaking, I hope we don't carry them around because that's probably not the done thing, but I get what it means. Sometimes there's a time for it, and sometimes we need to adjust things within our life, just, for our own well-being. But are we quick to hand out red cards to people? Like, actually, you've let me down. That's the end of that. From now on, that's it. Do you know what I'm saying? Or have you ever had that done to you? Because that's, I've had some people do that to me. That's hard. That's heavy. It's like, the hard part is we don't see Jesus doing that. He works, he says, okay, I know I've been let down by this person, or maybe I could be within my right to disqualify them, but I won't. He says, I'm going to talk, I'm going to communicate, I will work through this, I'm going to use that person. And Peter, who walked on those waves but sank, who later denied me when I was at my lowest. He was quite literally, at that point, they didn't know what was going to happen. He'd been crucified, and Peter, some of his disciples are saying, no, we don't know Jesus. You've got the wrong person. People are saying, didn't you hang around with Jesus? It's like, no, not me. He knew that. And what does he say later on? He says, on this rock, I will build my church. Talking to Peter, knowing everything he knows, with everything that he's been through. Says, but on this rock, on you, I will build my church. And we get that illustration of Simon Peter, the words reed to rock, something that was once blowing around in the wind, or what would go with whatever the flow took it, to this rock, this is now where I am consecrated. I've been through some things, and maybe I'm not always going to get it right, but I am now consecrated. I am this rock, and I will stand on what Jesus did. Does that make sense? We're all on I know it's a bit of a journey, but it's a bit of a cliche. We're all journeying in different ways, aren't we? We're all on different roads, different seasons of life. But I thought, as we go into this next season of church, just if we've got any feelings of disappointment or anything like that, or disqualification, we just have to be reminded that God really values you. That he really loves you, and he has something special for you to be able to do. Whether that's in a church service, whether that's out there in the world, maybe whether that's in your workplace. He says, look, don't ever rule yourself out of being valuable in God's kingdom. Because sometimes you see this, Christians, we get to a point where we think, I'm in the club, okay, I believe in God, but I just think that I am of no use to him. What can I do? He's not going to use me. He's going to use these people over there or these people over here, but what good can we do? But just like those disciples, whoever is simply available, he did not disqualify, did he? And sometimes our hearts, we just need to hear that again. We just need to know you're not disqualified. You're not ruled out. And God says that he will build his church on Peter, on that rock, but on just the people like you and me. He knew the score. He knew that love was going to be messy. I think of him up on that cross. We'll go into communion shortly, but I picture him up on that cross, and he looked around at the crowds, and how would that have felt? He could see the people that the week before were cheering him on, and now we're abandoning him. We're walking away, or we're pretending they didn't know him, and yet he's still on that cross, and he did not say, I changed my mind. They're not worth it, okay? I changed my mind. He said, look, they don't know what they're doing. He could see each person